we are going to do a book experiment. I have my handy dandy apron that has books and experimentation stuff on it because we're going to do how specific thriller books look and the theory behind those. I'm going to try to guess how the books end by their covers, like based on their covers, because I have seen a theme going on in thriller / horror books, but we're going to be like focusing mainly on thriller mystery books today because a lot of them have houses on them or ominous buildings on them. So I have a theme. There's a theme going on. We're going to try to figure it out together, or you're going to follow me on my journey of this experiment because I want to try, like I said, I want to try to think psychologically about these books and try to guess based on the cover what the book is about, okay? What the book's going to be about. Have I read some of the backs? Yes. But do I remember them? No, I don't. I don't remember what's on the back, but I did get an apron for this and I really like my apron. I just liked it because like it has like test tubes and all that on there, so it's relevant to this specific video. But I did make some little graphics too for you because we're going to talk about the psychology behind like the color choices that the person who made the book cover was thinking about when they were making the book cover. Why houses are on a lot of thriller books and horror books. So we're going to focus on how color psychology goes into these books, how specific type of imagery goes into these books. I'm going to try to come up with an idea of what I think these books are about based on their covers, what's going to happen, okay? We're going to go through that. But first, we need to talk about some color psychology and why these artists who make these book covers do so, specifically for thriller books. So the color psychology, obviously we all know that color triggers emotions. There are specific colors for specific emotions. You get taught that in like elementary school / art classes, you know. And one of the reasons why thriller books have like super dark and ominous colors is that aligning color choices and the book's content is really, really important. Obviously, this triggers, like, you know, looking at this, that this is going to be a dark book. It's most likely going to have some dark themes in it. Next thing we're going to talk about is the cover imagery. So why did they choose to put a house on here with a light on it? No idea. We're going to figure that out. But cover imagery is going to set the tone for the book. Again, looking at this, you can probably tell that it's a thriller, okay? Looking at this one, it's most likely a thriller or a horror book, you know? It's got some creepy stuff going on. They also have the font. Like this one, the font's really big. This one, they chose a brighter font. It's going to catch your attention. There's also in covers subtle, like cover imagery, subtle hints of symbolism and clues to reveal what's going to go on in the book. Again, creepy house, light on. Don't know what that means yet. It's in the middle of nowhere, right? So I don't know. We're going to figure that out. And again, colors setting the tone for the book. Next one is why houses and homes are on thriller covers. So when you're at home, you have, well, hopefully you have like a sense of security. But when you see a house on like a thriller book or a horror book, you know that there's probably going to be something surrounding that house that's not very good. Houses hold a significant part of mystery. When you look at people's houses, I don't know if you're nosy like me, but like when I look at people in my neighborhood, I'm like, what's going on in their house? What do they do? Ooh, they have that specific furniture in front of the window. Why do they have that? Do they work from home? I am very nosy when it comes to that. Not that I'm looking in people's windows or anything. It's just like a quick drive-by. But I have questions as to what people are doing in their houses, you know, because it's a mystery. This specifically, there's isolation, oppressiveness, threats, false sense of happiness. A lot of people don't have great home lives, so putting a home or a house on the cover, especially a darker themed book like a thriller book, is going to give you that sense of tone and let you know that something bad is going to happen, right? And then houses, they see everything. They see everything, in my opinion. Houses hold energy, okay? And they have a lot of secrets because they hold everybody's secrets. So that's just like the psychology behind the books that I thought of going through this and making these graphics and everything. I was like, I did some extensive research, obviously, knowing that colors and like how publishers and artists create books, they have to think about that while they're making it. Like, they have to think about it. They have to catch the audience's and the consumer's attention, and then they have to make the book, and then, you know, you get to decide if the cover matches the book or not. Sometimes it really irritates me when the book does not match the cover. Okay, so the first book we're going to read in here, my thoughts on this. We already know that there's going to be a lot of secrets about the house, obviously. It's going to have a dark atmosphere just based on the cover. Like the colors, the clouds, the trees, you know that it's in the wilderness. This house, although looks nice, you can tell that it's probably been through some shit, okay? I'm going to say that our main character, when they are walking up or driving up to the house, is going to see that this light is on, but nobody's supposed to be in the house. I don't know about you, but if I saw that, I probably wouldn't go in the house. If I knew that it's remote and there's like supposed to be nobody, and the person that owns the house doesn't tell you that they left a light on for you, I think that's kind of creepy. So I don't know if I'd go in it. I'm also going to predict that a storm comes through and knocks out all the power, and the main character is like, you know, I'm going to predict that too. Those are my predictions. Obviously, I already know that some of them are true, like the dark atmosphere. Hopefully, the house light is not, you know, missing from the story, because I'm going to assume if it's on the book, it's going to be in the story too. But lots of secrets and the storm coming through, those are just some thoughts that popped in my brain, like, we'll see, you know. But yeah, that's the premise of this video. There might be some spoilers, obviously, within this video. I'll let you know if there are spoilers. I'll put like a spoiler thing on the screen or whatever. But yeah, we're going to start with She Left First. One, because it's a library book and I have to return it soon. But I want to read this one first. Okay.
Rivers of rainwater streamed down it, pouring across the buckled hardwood floors into the hall, and the rain itself pounded in through the gaping hole where the outer wall had been. The chairs and table that had been next to the window were buried under the slide, to which the entire room had lost half its space. In the voice of experience, but the rest of the group had already come to the same conclusion, and before he had finished speaking, they were already retreating down the hall.
So I just finished She Left. I am going to give it 2 stars. If you have read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley, and Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, what's the other Riley Sager book that just came out? With a Vengeance, you will get nothing new out of this book. This book was, it was a lot of other books smushed together. But anyways, we have Amy, and Amy is a detective. Her friends that she went on like a trip with ended up dying, and it was called the Memorial Day Massacre. And then 20 years later, she gets this random invitation in the mail. She doesn't really know anything about it, but it's at a secluded cabin in the woods. And when she gets there, she realizes that there are people that are either related or have some sort of connection with all of the friends that she had that died in the massacre. And then people just start dying one by one. So It's a locked door mystery, that kind of thing. Nothing really new to say about this particular book besides it's easy to read, it's easy to listen to. I was playing Sims while I was listening to this. It's one of those books that doesn't show you anything. It just tells you a lot of stuff, like the ending. The last chapter did not have to be the last chapter, because we already knew that something was sketchy. Something sketchy was going on, and it was just like feeding me all this information at the very end. I'm not a person that likes ambiguous endings, but in this particular book, I kind of wish it was left open to our interpretation instead of us just getting all of the answers at the very end in a final chapter. So, my opinion, I mean, read it if you're interested, but there's nothing new to get from this book rather than locked door, remote cabin in the woods, and a lot of people that are sketch. You don't trust any of them. So let's see if I got any of my predictions correct. First thing, it did have a dark atmosphere, obviously. People are dying in this cabin. You're trying to figure out the mystery of, like, who's behind everything. There's a lot of red herrings. There's just a lot of, like, who done it, you know? There's a lot of that. Well, I did get correct that there is a storm that makes all the power go out, that intensifies the dark atmosphere, the tension. I did like that part of it. I thought that that part of the book was done really well. And it would be terrifying to be in a position like this because there's a lot of rain, there's storms, there's a landslide, and this cabin is like, there's a lot of heel at the back of the cabin, and when the landslide happens, it just like, and pretty much takes half of the house out. So that would be terrifying. Those were the only two things that I got correct in my predictions. Does the cover do anything for the actual story? Again, you know, it's going to be dark. You know, it's going to have, there's going to be a lot of tension. There's going to be probably murder in here, which there was, and a storm. Yep, I was right about all of that. The next book we're going to read is by Shannara Williams, and it's Whispers of the Lake. I don't know anything about this book, but my predictions for this are the main character has a lot of self-reflection in this actual book because of the reflection of the house and on the water, you know. I think that self-reflection is going to be wrapped up in this book heavily, okay? And my next one is, it's going to be remote and lonely. Like this one, this person is wanting a remote setting. Possibly they want to be alone, you know, maybe they are lonely. I don't know. But it's going to be remote. There's going to be some loneliness in here, a lot of self-reflection in here, and also curiosity killed the cat. I think that when they see this, they're going to be like, oh, it's a cozy little cabin, but what has happened here? Because obviously something has happened here, so is it really all cute and cuddly, or does it have nefarious things that have happened, you know? And then maybe like the lights are always on, but nobody's supposed to be there. Somebody's watching through the windows. I don't know. We'll figure it out though. I am a little over halfway through with Whispers of the Lake, sorry. And this is about Rose. Rose is an investigative reporter, and she is going through a divorce because she found her husband and her bestie in a compromising position, we'll say that. And she is now trying to figure out life, you know, as a divorcee, but she's also trying to figure out what happened to her best friend Eve, because Eve went somewhere and then no one ever heard from her again. So Rose is trying to figure out what happened to her best friend, even though she's really, really mad at her best friend. And we're just following Rose around in this very, very small small town. There are, of course, racist people. There is a lot of talk of if Eve just went off on her own because she was going through some things. She lost her best friend. We're also getting some journal entries about Eve's life before all of this happened, and she went through a lot with her family and physical and mental abuse, and the journal entries shine a lot of light. And I think that Rose is going to have to reflect on her thoughts of Eve, because I do think that there were some nefarious things going on with her husband, or her soon-to-be ex-husband. And I think that she is going to realize that even though Eve made a mistake, she might not have had a choice in the situation, if that makes sense. So it's very interesting. It's pretty, it's easy to get through. Some of the dialogue in here, it's kind of throwing me off a little bit because it's written, it's not a 30-year-old woman talking sometimes. But I also think too that when you go through something like this, especially with your best friend and your husband, pettiness is going to come out a little bit, and some of the young thoughts that we used to think, like when we were teenagers, about you and everything, I think those come back into play. So I am trying to not that I'm judging Rose, because I feel for her, but I'm trying not to let that kind of dialogue get in my way of the story, you know. I ended up finishing Whispers of the Lake, and I'm going to give it a 3.75. Thought that it was a pretty good sleuth thriller where Rose is trying to figure out where her best friend went, and then we get Eve's, who is Rose's best friend's, journal entry, so we're getting that past and present narrative style. Yeah, I mean, it was decent. There was a lot of action, there was a lot of mystery in here, there were thrilling scenes, all of that kind of stuff. I did like Rose a lot after I got to know her. Her friend and her had a very rocky relationship anyways. Eve was not a easy person to like, and Rose just got to the point where she was tired of it, and Eve slept with her husband. So I don't blame Rose at all, but I do like where the story went, and the ending was wacky, okay? The ending was wacky. So my guesses, based on the cover, I was right about the main character having to reflect on their lives a lot, even though it was more of Eve than Rose, but there was a lot of reflection in here. It was kind of remote and lonely. Rose is going through a divorce, so throughout the story you are getting her at a very lonely state in her life. So I'll say that I got that right. Curiosity kills the cat. Yeah. Rose is very curious to figure out what happened to Eve, and the more she digs, the more she finds out. I was not correct about the lights always being on. That was just like a guess though. But I think if you were looking for a sleuth mystery thriller that does have a lot of action in it and a lot of self-reflection, I think that you would really like this. So now we are going to be reading The Clinic. I did already start on this. I'm not even close to being halfway through yet, but the cover of this, to me, we already know that something sinister is going to happen here because of what's going on here. We know that it's going to be remote and lonely, hopefully. It's going to have a dark atmosphere. I think that it's going to be very dreary and possibly raining a lot. And again, something sinister is happening. I did already start this. So we have Meg, and Meg works for a casino in LA. Yeah, LA. She is put on the floor to catch cheaters and card counters and all of that. She also has an addiction to oxycodone. So there is a lot of talk about addiction in here, so just a warning for those of you that want to read. But her famous sister Haley ends up at this clinic, and this clinic is like for celebrities. It's very refined supposedly, and it's very high end. But her sister Haley ends up dead at this clinic. So Meg, who is, her job is to like catch people lying and stuff like that, she decides that she's going to check into this rehab clinic and see if she can figure out what happened to her sister. There is something weird going on in this clinic, okay? Something weird. Not only is Meg fighting her own battles of addiction, but she's also being warned away from this clinic, from this rehab facility. And she notices too that the people that are in this rehab facility, something is off about them. The staff is weird. We're following this staff member named Kara. I don't know about her, y'all. She's an odd duck, okay? She's an odd one. But it's interesting to see how the patients here are being treated. I don't know. I don't trust any of these people, to be completely honest. I don't trust the doctors. I don't trust this Kara chick. I don't really trust Meg all that much, to be completely honest. Meg knows that her sister would not unalive herself. So Meg is like, somebody murdered my sister. So we're gonna figure it out. And she's hopefully gonna figure it out. I finished this. I'm giving it a 3.5. It wasn't bad by any means, but it was a little boring at times. I really liked the exploration that we had of Meg. Meg is going through her own addiction with opioids, and when she finds out that her sister died mysteriously at this clinic, that's when she goes to investigate everything. But we really see Meg transform. She doesn't think that she has a problem. And then when she gets there, she realizes that she's going to solve her sister's murder. She's going to have to figure things out for herself, like within. And I really liked the exploration of that. I liked seeing Meg's transformation and realizing that she did have a problem and needing to fix that problem to help her sister. The twist at the end, I kind of saw coming, but I liked the way that the author handled that situation. It was kind of far-fetched at times, but I did like it. I thought that it was very interesting. It wasn't bad by any means. It was just kind of like, it was kind of off the wall at times. And it did have some humorous moments in it too. I thought that Meg was she was a funny character, and she kind of brought light to the whole situation of what's going on here at this clinic. It did get kind of wacky. My predictions of this book: it was remote. I said and lonely, but honestly, there were so many people around all the time, even though that doesn't always mean that you're not lonely, but there was just a lot of people all the time, and it was chaotic, and I was like, lonely is not one. Dark atmosphere, yes, very dark atmosphere. Dreary and raining a lot. It did rain a lot. I mean, they're on the side of a cliff, so yeah, it did rain a lot, and it was just kind of like, the tone of the book was dreary in itself, so there's that. And then something sinister is going on. Obviously, something sinister was going on. That's why she wanted to go to the clinic to try to figure out her sister's death. But yeah, so my predictions were correct. I don't know what that's doing for me, but I guess I could clink my nails. So the next book we're going to read is What You Leave Behind by Wanda M. Morris. And I have said my predictions for this book are bad family ties to the land and her house, like somebody has to go back to family home where something bad has happened, obviously. I'm going to say that there's a fire at some point because of the colors of this book. It looks like a fire to me, okay? It just looks like a flame. So I'm going to say that a fire has happened at some point. Not sure if that's correct or not. MC doesn't want to go back to the home, but is forced to in some way, and I kind of like cheated on the back. Well, not really cheated. I looked at the back, and our main character, Dina, is having to go back to her family home because she has lost her mother. So there's that. And I'm going to say nature and spirits have influenced this house in some way. Just because the house itself, even though it's beautiful, You can see like there's some broken glass right here. The architecture of this house is very beautiful. It's kind of, it reminds me of like a Victorian style house, you know, like if you look really close, but there are broken windows. The roof looks like it's falling apart. And there's this really big tree here too. And I don't know, I'm just feeling like the house has some kind of influence on, or in the land is like influencing what's going on here for this family. But I am excited to read this. I ended up finishing What You Leave Behind, and I'm giving it a 4.5. Y'all, this was a wild ride all the way through. The very beginning, I was in it. I was sitting on the edge of my seat and I was getting nervous because we have Dina. Dina is going back to her hometown, her family home that she grew up in, after her mother has passed away, and also after she's going through a divorce. She's almost 40. She is paralegal / lawyer. She went to law school, so I'm going to say that she's a lawyer, but she's doing like paralegal work. She doesn't want to be back home at all because there are memories there. She doesn't want to face her grief of losing her mother. And she stumbles upon this old man called Holcomb. And at the very beginning, Holcomb, and he's like, get off my land, has a shotgun, and it was intense, okay? And then she gets chased by a freaking car. It was intense. So it was an intense start. But this town called Brunswick, Georgia, is the home of a lot of Igbo ancestors and a group called the Gullah Geechee people. And these people were brought over from Africa to be enslaved. So there are some bad memories tied to this land, and the more Dina digs into what's going on to the people that are around her, because gentrification is happening, she realizes that these people have lived on this land for decades and they are literally getting their land taken out from under them. So that is a really big part of this book. And when she runs into Holcomb, she realizes that his family owns land, and then he ends up missing. So she is being a sleuth and trying to figure out what's going on with Holcomb's mystery, like the mystery of where Holcomb went. Plus, also, the farther that she digs, the more she realizes that people are literally getting their houses taken from them because they can't afford the land taxes that people want them to pay, or they don't have the correct paperwork that says that the land is theirs, even though the land has been in their family for generations. And it's really sad. I know that I was just like joking about like the quickness of this book and what was going on, but honestly, it is really scary to know that people know these loopholes and they can just swoop in and take somebody's like property like that. And this property, this area is very urban, and there are a lot of people, like I said, who have lived there for generations, and them not knowing the laws of like somebody can come in and just buy up your shit, you know? They don't know that. And it's so freaking sad to know that there are big corporations that are out there that do that to people every day. And I've seen it, like where I live too. There were a lot of buildings that got torn down, and then like freaking apartment buildings came in, and these new places are so expensive that these people cannot afford where they're living, and they have to leave and they're forced out. And it's infuriating, okay? It's infuriating to know that these big corporations that have millions and millions of dollars are doing it to line their pockets even more. And that's what this book is all about. So if you are looking for a book that talks about generational wealth specifically for Black people, I think that you would really like this. It's a thrilling book. It is about Dina being a sleuth. You meet her parents, you meet the people that are in the town, and honestly, I just really fell in love with Dina and her dad especially, and Ruth, who's her stepmom. But I fell in love with these characters. They were just so full of life, and even though they were having to fight what they're fighting in here, there was just so much joy and love and happiness, and honestly there was so much humor in here too. So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I think you should read it. It reminded me a lot of When No One's Watching by Alyssa Cole too. But I liked that book. And I'm gonna give myself a point, even though I'm not really taking points, but I'm gonna give myself a point for Family Ties to the Land. I said that bad family ties to the land, but it really wasn't bad. But there are family ties to the land, so I'm gonna give myself a little point. Fire at some point, I was wrong. I was right about the main character not wanting to go back home, but they're being forced to. Was right about that. And then spirits influence in some way. At the very beginning of this book, you have a prologue, and it is in, it's in italics. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want to ruin it for you, but I'm going to give myself a point for that too, okay? So the next book we're going to read is The Widow's House. My predictions for this book is that it's going to be the scary house on the block, right? The house makes people do bad things. That's my prediction. And I'm also going to predict that there are secret passageways, rooms that just pop up out of nowhere. Possibly somebody got murdered in a room and there's a ghost or something. But those are my predictions for this book. That's all I know. I was 50% right on all of my predictions for this book, because this house is the house at the end of the street, or at the block, end of the block, whatever, that everybody's like, ooh, that house is really bad. You should not go in there. It's haunted. There's some weird things happening. And then there's also some dark hallways. I wouldn't say secret rooms, but rooms that have an ominous feeling to them. So I'm going to give myself 50% on that. But I would not say that this book is my absolute favorite. I'm giving it a 2.5. There were some scenes in here that were pretty ominous, but overall this book was just kind of lackluster for me. If you like the yellow wallpaper, I think you would like this book. Also, if you've ever read The Woman in the Dark, I think that you would like this book too. But those are better. Those are better. I can tell that this author was inspired by the yellow wallpaper just because of some of the overall themes that were in here of women not being believed, women being told that they are insane, women with mental health issues or who have had mental health issues in the past. People just kind of you're crazy. But is she? So Claire and Jess are married. Their marriage is not very good. They moved to Claire's hometown. They move into this house, and they're given the opportunity to kind of try to renovate the house. Claire finds out that her past is kind of wrapped up into this house, and when she figures that out, she realizes that, hey, I have family, and I didn't realize that I had family. So we learn about that. We also learn that Jess is a horrible husband, so there's that aspect. But overall, it was just kind of lackluster to me, and I don't think that this book was very thrilling. I don't think that this book was very scary, and the ending just kind of solidified that half taken off of a 3 for me, because I was going to give it a 3. I don't like the way that I don't like the ending at all. Okay, don't like it. I wish it would have stayed in one direction more than the other. It does have some paranormal, supernatural aspects to it, but overall it was just kind of okay. It was okay. So the last book for this video is The Institution by Helen Fields, and my predictions for this book is that keeping the bad in and the good out. So this is about, yeah, it's a locked ward, and the worst of the worst are here, supposedly. So we're gonna figure that out. And then I'm going to say that it has a dark atmosphere, obviously. It's remote and lonely, obviously. And the various things are happening to the people that are in the institute or the ward. And the ward doesn't want the outside world to know that nefarious things happen in this particular place. I realized that I never filled you in on this book. And to let you know if I was correct on all my predictions. And yes, I was correct on all my predictions. It's remote. There's nefarious things going on. They're keeping the bad people in, good people out. But there's a twist, okay? There's always a twist. We have Dr. Connie Woolwine, and she is a forensic profiler. She gets called to this island because there is the murder of a nurse that works at this high security prison hospital. And there are extremely dangerous people in this hospital. They're all murderers that have some sort of mental health condition. And Connie realizes that she is going to have to solve this murder. She's going to have to be in it. She's going to have to figure out who this person was that murdered this nurse and then stole her unborn baby. As Connie gets to know the patients, she realizes that there is something else happening behind closed doors, that somebody knows what happened to the nurse and somebody knows that the baby, like where the baby is. We get to know the patients that are in this hospital. They're not good people, okay? They are not good people. But they had some humor about them, and I know that I probably shouldn't have laughed when I did, but there was a lot of humor written in this book too. And they just say what they want to say and they don't care. They're like, I'm in here for life, so I'm just gonna let it all, like, lay it out on the table for you. And there are some characters in here that I did feel for, but they did some really heinous things. And I thought that the author did a really good job with the whole commentary behind people can do really heinous things, but still have a lot of things, like good qualities about them. Still, they did really, really bad stuff. And it was just an exploration of the human psychology and why people do the things that they do, why people commit murder, why people who look quote unquote normal do the things that they do. And I liked the commentary about all of that because I like psychological thrillers like this, because I like to learn about the brain and why the brain does what it does and why people do what it does. Like trauma, people maybe are just born bad. It's just one of those things that I like to learn about. I am going to give this book a 2.5 though, because the writing in this book was subpar, and I thought that it did more telling me than showing me things. There would be like conversations happening and a lot of just like stuff dumped on you at that point, and rather you just trying to figure it out for yourself. It was just like, here's everything, info dumpy, you know, and I don't like for my stories to do that to me. So yeah, it wasn't a bad book, but it was just kind of like at times, you know. And the ending got really wacky. Was not expecting the ending to do what it did at all. It kind of didn't fit the tone of the rest of the book. But there are a lot of bad things that are going on in this hospital that the doctors don't want to get out. So there's that aspect too, where, you know, people who are in prison get treated like absolute crap and are in inhumane situations. There's a lot of topic about that in here too. So yeah, overall, was this video a success? I had a really good time with it. I think it was fun, and I hope you did too. I am planning on doing a horror book cover experiment next time about like weird horror, and trying to figure out what the weird horror and themes and all that kind of stuff are going to be for those books. Hopefully you stick around for that. I will see you on the next one. Have a great day wherever you are, and goodbye.